Welcome to The Bone, the podcast that goes deeper. Here we cut through the noise and get straight to the core of the issues that matter. From real stories to raw truths, we dive deep into the conversations that shape our world and challenge our thinking. We're not afraid to dig in and get to the marrow of it all. Whether it's life, culture, or business in sports medicine, we're here to break it down raw and real. No filters, no fluff, just to the bone. With your host, Shelby Daly, we're getting to the bone. This is a clinically pressed, approved CEU podcast. Find the quiz to gain credit at clinicallypressed.org/courses. Clinically Pressed Company, making the complicated simple through results that give back. Find out more at clinicallypressed.org. Let's get started.
Hello, my name is Ashley Burr. I'm a certified athletic therapist from Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, and I am the host of Athletic Therapy Now. Tonight we are doing a crossover episode with myself and Shelby.
And I'm Shelby Daly. I'm the host of To the Bone podcast. I'm an athletic trainer in the U.S., primarily in Philadelphia at the moment.
And tonight we're going to talk about the history of athletic therapy in Canada. And we have Glen Bergeron here with us. So Glen is a distinguished faculty member at the Gupta Faculty of Kinesiology and Applied Health at the University of Winnipeg. He has a BPE from the University of Manitoba in 1973 and an MSc from the University of Alberta in 1978 and a PhD from the University of Manitoba in 1992. He certified with the Canadian Athletic Therapist Association in 1975, has worked at many national and international events, including 5 Olympic Games, 2 World University Games, 1 Pan Am Games, and a variety of world championships. He has served as a certified athletic therapist for a variety of sports, including football, hockey, soccer, fastball, track and field, basketball, volleyball, and uniquely professional wrestling. Glen was the medical lead for the 2017 Canada Summer Games in Manitoba. He was inducted into the CATA Hall of Fame in 1997, is a member of the Program Accreditation Committee of the Canadian Athletic Therapist Association, a board member of the Manitoba Medical Services Foundation, and a member of the Manitoba Adult Concussion Network. He currently serves internationally as the past president of the World Federation of Athletic Training and Therapy. In 2022, he was awarded with the first WFATT Achievement Award. In 2023, he was awarded the Outstanding Educator Award by the Massage Therapy Association of Manitoba. Glen's PhD research was on patellofemoral pain of the knee, and he has experience with the treatment of back pain, neck pain, and focuses on research and treatment of acute and persistent post-concussion symptoms. Glen also sees patients in the on-campus athletic therapy clinic 2 days a week. So if I were to sum that up, it would just say, Glen does everything and has done everything.
Canadian royalty.
It's just a matter of being there long enough. That's all. I've been here for a long time. I just got, actually it doesn't say that, but I just got a 50-year membership award, I guess it would be from the Canadian Athletic Therapist Association. There's 4 of us that were given that award, yeah. So
Very
that means
exciting.
It's been there for a long time.
I always start my podcasts by asking in one sentence to share your favorite thing about being an athletic therapist.
It'll probably be cliche, but it's working with people, like whether it's our athletes or patients that I see in the clinic. And I've been teaching for many, many years. So working with all of our students has been a great experience to be able to work with people and learn from each one of them. They all teach me something new. So it's been a great privilege to be able to have done that for as long as I have.
That's great. Not cliche. You're actually the first person to say that it's because you like working with people. So
yeah, I'm sure.
So Shelby's going to start us off with some questions.
So as we did some background on the CATA, it was formed in 1965, but how did athletic therapy first develop in Canada, and what were some of the initial influences?
Yeah, so it was 1965, and actually, this was just a group of people who got together, and it was just a handful of people. I think probably a dozen people from various walks of life. They had at the time that they were referred to as the trainers, and so the trainer for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and some of my mentors from they were with Royal Military College, and others who were working with pro football at the time. They decided that they wanted to get together and just share ideas. It's just one of those things that, with athletic therapy, as many of you will know, it's you oftentimes are the lone wolf on the team because sometimes you're the only athletic therapist, so you have no other people to work with. And so that was the real impetus for this, is just for them to get together and share ideas and essentially form a bit of a support group, if you want. And I actually have, in fact, we've digitized it now, but I actually have the original reel, and it's huge video reel of the first meeting of the Canadian Athletic Therapy Association. It was done at Toronto, the Maple Leaf Gardens in Toronto in 1965. So that was the thing. It was for them was just all about getting together, networking, sharing, and supporting, and that has been really the reason for the CATA ever since that time. When we have our national conferences, it's all about getting together and networking and sharing ideas and supporting each other.
I had no idea.
Stick with me, kid. You'll learn a few things.
Well, I'm going to actually kind of jump around. Sorry, Ashley.
No, that's okay.
You guys were Canadian trainers, athletic trainers, I'm assuming. What happened to the name change? Why did that happen?
Yeah, and actually, just to take you back just a little bit more, Canada used to be one of the districts in the NATA, the National Athletic Trainers Association. Oh. There was a Canadian district, but then when the CATA, when they chose to get together like this, they chose to have an association for in their own country, and they were initially when they first started in 1965 was the Canadian Athletic Trainers Association. In 1975, the year that I certified, and I remember being at the meeting at that time, they opted to change the name to Canadian Athletic Therapists Association, and one of the reasons for it was just to be able to get more clarity on the name. Like in large part, one of the things was that if you're at all aware of the question, like horse racing, the people who train the horses are trainers, so they're the horse trainer, and they would be the trainer. And we kind of wanted to separate ourselves from that term as well. Say that no, we don't work on horses. We actually work on it's a different thoroughbred. It's a human thoroughbred as opposed to an equine thoroughbred. So we wanted to move ourselves away from that, and we also wanted to because we saw ourselves working very much in the medical community. We wanted to use a terminology that would have more of a medical connotation to it. So that's why we went with that Canadian Athletic Therapy Association. I can tell you that it's probably one of the best things that we did to go to the term athletic therapist. And we still fight the whole notion that we are athletic therapists. But we're very happy with the fact that we made that change. And I think to some degree, it's a bit of the envy. I know it's been said to me many times that people with the NATA wish they had changed their name. It has come up in the NATA a number of times where they've had referendums on it, and it's lost very closely, mostly because there's a history, there's a brand, and it's very to change that around. So we had a 10-year history, but we were really, really well established by that time. So it was a little easier transition for us than it is for the Americans now.
Yeah, I know it's a big debate still on if we should change the name, but since we've been around since the 50s now, it's 75 years, and I feel like we finally made some difference in people understanding what we do. But we get compared to personal trainers is usually the route that happens in the US of, oh, you can help me lose weight or you can help me get stronger. And it's like, well, we could do that. That's part of it. But we have so many more skills than that. So So,
And the
yep.
personal trainer thing is something that's just come up in the last 20 years.
Yeah.
There was, at the time, there wasn't personal training. We weren't fighting that issue because they weren't there. There was no such thing as a personal trainer when we were doing it, but that has now evolved. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The debate is what we change it to now at this point. We'll just steal Canada's name, I guess.
but learn from it, because now we're running into this whole like athletic therapist, and as Glenn was kind of alluding to, a lot of people are they won't go and see an athletic therapist because they think they have to be elite athletes, not just your everyday gym goer, but they think they have to be elite athletes in order to see an athletic therapist. So there's still that side of it too.
Yeah.
Forever a battle.
Putting on my World Federation hat, I've been pretty conscientious about trying to. We really think it's important that we, if we're going to brand the profession internationally, that we have some consistency in terms of names. So we have most of the new organizations that have come on since, like in Israel and in Jordan and Australia, Ireland, and Greece. They've all come in and they're now using the term athletic therapist. So we still, with the World Federation, we keep the name as World Federation of Athletic Training and Therapy, to try and, because we certainly don't want to alienate one of our biggest partners.
We looked at the numbers. Shelby and I did a podcast a few weeks ago, and we were comparing the numbers of ATs in the U.S. to Canada, and it surprised me. It was the first time that I ever had looked into it. So it was what, 50,000, 55,000 in
about 55, yeah,
the U.S. and 3,000 in Canada.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we're the second biggest. But I mean, if you ever, Shelby, you've probably been to the NATA conference and stuff, and that just blows your mind. It's between 10 and 14,000 people who show up at a conference in the NATA, and in ours it's like 300 or 400 on a good day.
Yeah. Ashley, we'll have to go to NATA together.
Yeah.
You want to go to Florida this year? We can go.
I'll make it happen. That's great.
Your body is the most important instrument you have to perfect your craft, and it's important to keep it in top form. As To The Bone's official recovery partner, Rapid Reboot Recovery Products can help you do this. With their best-in-class pneumatic compression devices, you can customize your recovery settings to help your body perform its best. Get yours today with the To The Bone 15% discount code. That's right. Visit rapidreboot.com, rapidreboot.com, and enter the code ToTheBone15 to get your 15% discount.
So were there any pivotal moments or events in Canadian history that led to the formal recognition or development of athletic therapy?
Oh, there are so many. I mean, I've been around for a long time now. I took on the presidency of the Canadian Athletic Therapists Association in 1979. I don't know what I was thinking. I was 27 years old. But yeah, and I was the president for, I had been the vice president for 2 years as a 25-year-old. And then at 27, I took on the presidency. And then I was the president for 4 years. But I can tell you that the day that I at the conference, the day that I got elected as the president, after the meetings, somebody came to me and it's a very prominent person who came to me and said, "You have a fight on your hands because you're going to have to deal with the Canadian Physiotherapist Association who want to shut you down." So I go, "Okay, why didn't you tell me that before I accepted this thing?" But anyway, so there was, I mean, that in those days, that was an issue. We really had to hold our ground into what we were doing. And so the people who were on the executive committee with me, there was Dexter Nelson and Dale Butterwick and Carol Keys and myself, the four of us who were really instrumental, I think, of kind of turning the thing around. It became sort of the new generation at the time. The people that we were taking over from were my mentors. They're the people. They were the founding fathers, and so we were taking over from them. They passed the baton on to us, and that's when we brought in a whole new set of bylaws. That's when we brought in the code of ethics. That was when we brought in a new scope of practice. And that's when all of our working documents as members of our committees worked really, really hard at putting all these working documents into I want to say more formalize the profession. So that was a big turning point there, I think, for us to try and do all that. And then we also around that time we also worked on the program. We developed the guidelines for program accreditation. We recognized that that if we were going to have any kind of future, that our programs the academic programs had to be much more formalized. At the time, it was much in the same way as it was in the NATA. It was an internship-based program. People were in universities largely in physical education programs. That's where my degree is. And we worked in as interns, and we just worked, kind of worked learned on the fly and learned by doing and being in the clinic and that kind of thing. And then we did have the certification exams. So those certification exams, as I said, started in 1975. That's a huge turning point for us, because then that's when we said, okay, we're going to regulate the quality of the people coming out, and then and largely that was to protect our profession, but also to protect the public. So we wanted to make sure that the quality and the standard was there. So having that in 1975, there was I think this is the 50th year of certification. So I've been certified 50 years as of this year, and I think we're trying to do something for that. So that's 50 years ago already, and so that was a huge turning point. I guess I should say that before 1979. And then we decided that we needed to get into the academic institutions. So again, Dale Butterwick and Dexter Nelson and myself and Carol Keys, I remember sitting around the kitchen table at Dexter Nelson's house, and we spent 3 days there, and we just hammered out what an academic institution would have to look like for it to be accredited. So we put all that document together, and then we passed it. It got passed through the Canadian Athletic Therapy Association through the membership, and that was in 19. I think it was around 1997 is when that happened. But the motion came out that said, once we had all that document for it, it said that as of 1999, from the time that the first program would get their accreditation, that's when every other accredited school had to be accredited. You could only graduate from an accredited institution from the time that the first school got accredited. And that happened in 1999. And that was Sheridan College was the first ones to get accredited. They were the first school. They were the first to actually have a school of athletic therapy. And so it was really a quick transition for them to get certified as soon as we had the documents that did that. And then right after that, from that point on, you can only graduate, you can only write the exam if you came from an accredited institution. Right after that, University of Winnipeg came through, and then shortly after that, York University came in, and then the other schools started to follow suit. And now we're at 9 schools across the country. Oh, no, sorry, we're now 10. We just accepted another one. Brock University is just going to get approved. So we have 10 universities. And it might sound like it's small. And the NATA has like 326, I think, at the last time I had counted. But we have schools in every one of the regions right across the country. And I think we probably don't want to have that much more. And I know, in fact, that in the NATA, there's a bit of a glut of schools. There are too many schools out there, and some of them are having a tough time existing, especially now that they've gone to the master's level programming. But that's where we were. So that was a really major turning point for us. That now people were coming out of accredited institutions. We had therapists who were being hired at the universities as instructors and things like that. So that's been a huge turning point for us.
I had a question about the presidency at 27 years old. I mean, I guess I haven't really looked far enough back, but I know that in the NATA, it's quite a lengthy process, I guess, to be a qualifying candidate for the president here. You have to usually put in your time. Has the Canadian Association changed their qualifications for presidential candidates at all?
I wouldn't say no. I mean, I mean, the requirement for being president, you have to have had served on one of the major boards as a chair, or you've had to serve on the executive committee. So you can't just come walking in. So that's why I was a vice president for 2 years. But even then, I was at 25 years old as the vice president. So I kind of got parachuted in there. But at 27, yeah, it's, and we were at the time, like I said, we were really struggling for our identity and our funding. We had some major funding that got federal funding that got taken away from us. Not just our organization, but all the sport medicine organizations. So we had some funding that was removed. So we had to go back to federal government and fight for funding and stuff. And I'm talking to guys who, at the time, I thought they were really old. They were like in their 50s, And so, we're having to talk to these guys and make them understand. And we did get funding back, actually. And in fact, what then happened out of all of that is that we formed the Sport Medicine Science Council of Canada, which another one was a really great opportunity for the Canadian Athletic Therapists Association to put itself on the national stage amongst other health professionals. So the Canadian Athletic Therapists Association was one of the founding members of the Sport Medicine Science Council of Canada and involved the doctors and the physios and massage therapists. And then we had a number of exercise physiologists. They were in the program, and this was in a national organization. We're the ones that did all the work with selecting teams to go to major games, et cetera, et cetera. We advised the federal government on a number of other issues. And then that changed when the International Olympic Committee went to what they call the Own the Podium system, when they had to internalize their own sports medicine and science program. So that national group fell by the wayside, unfortunately. But again, it was an opportunity for us to be on the national scene, and we played a strong leadership role in that area to do that. So
that's crazy. So it sounds like from when you took on your presidency in what year was that?
1979.
1979.
Were you born there, Ashley?
No. So they had started creating the exam process prior to your presidency there, and then from there on you started yourself and Gail and Dexter and Carol started bringing in the bylaws and scope of practice and ethics in the late 70s, and then moving on towards the accredited institutions in the late 90s.
Yeah.
Planning that obviously was probably more than a dinner table night, but I'm sure that took 20 years, 10 years.
Yeah, it took a long time to put it all together. I know, that's right. Yeah, patience and and determination, and yeah.
Well, good for you. That's I appreciate everything that you have done for us.
There's been lots of people who come after me as well. Like some of the people who took on the presidency after me. If I started naming names, I know I'll miss some people, but there have been some great people who've we just passed on the torch and supported them as much as we could, and they've all done a great job moving it to where we are now.
Introducing HuTape, the skin tone kinesiology tape designed to help you heal while blending seamlessly with your skin. Whether you're recovering from an injury or needing some extra reinforcement, HuTape offers support where you need it most without compromising your comfort or style. Our tape is available in 3 versatile skin tones, ensuring a seamless match for all skin types. No more awkward mismatched colors or feeling self-conscious during your recovery. HuTape isn't just about looks. It's designed for high performance. With its strong yet flexible adhesive, you get the support you need without sacrificing mobility. Whether you're dancing or working out, you'll enjoy a full range of motion and all-day comfort. But that's not all. Q-tip can be worn for up to 4 days. Going for a shower or swim, Q-tip has got you covered. Find us at www.qtape.com and at qtape_ on all social media platforms.
So, how did athletic therapy evolve in terms of its scope of practice over time in Canada?
Right. Well, largely when the association started, and those people who were the founding fathers, most of them were working in team settings. There was no such thing as us working in a clinical setting. So I think the way the whole thing evolved is that we had a very well-defined clientele, and we were assigned or worked or hired by a team, and we worked with those athletes, and that's all we did. And I know when I started at the University of Winnipeg, I started there in when did I start at the University of Winnipeg? 1976. Yeah, in 1976 I started working at the University of Winnipeg, but at the time I was just hired just to work with our athletes. And, I'd have to do the clinical thing in the morning and do all the taping and everything else in the afternoon and cover their practices through the evening and stuff. And that was it. And then slowly as things evolve, what would happen is that an athlete's mother or father would get hurt, or somebody I'm at the university, and so a faculty member would get hurt. Would you have a look at me? So we'd have a look at them. And then eventually somebody would say, well, can you have a look at this person? And can you have a look at somebody else? And I go, oh, well, I got a couple minutes in my time, sort of bring them in. And eventually I just got so many people who were coming in all the time that were not my athletes. And we didn't have any fee for service set up. I was doing all this stuff for nothing. And just as the goodwill as a university employee kind of thing. The only good thing about doing that was I never ever had to buy a bottle of wine or a bottle for Christmas time or a box of chocolates. Nothing. I got so much stuff at Christmas time. People showed their gratitude that way. But it got to be so busy that I said, I need to hire somebody to come and do that, because now I could find an opportunity for an athletic therapist to come work in my clinic, and it was a revenue source that we could actually help pay for their salary. And we also opened up a weight room at that time. And so part of the thing is that this person had to take care of the weight room in terms of doing orientations of athletes and people who were using the weight room, and got paid for that and worked in the clinic. So that's how we first started. And then it just evolved. And the more and more people would start to see that, they would be watching a football game, for example, and somebody had an ACL repair, and they were back to playing, and the next year, or an Achilles tendon, and at that time was an ACL was a year off, and or an Achilles tendon, and they're back playing. And meanwhile, this other person's had an ACL or a torn Achilles playing tennis, and there's no way they're even thinking about playing. And they go, why can't I get that same service? So they would just come and see us, and that's how it evolved. Then it just grew and grew and grew organically that way. And to the point where people are saying, look, I've seen so many people, I might as well open a private clinic. Or in our case, we just hired a staff to see more people. So it created a job market. And then some of these people then would go, well, I'm going to open up a clinic and outside. And so that's how all of this has evolved. But initially, it was strictly all athletes. I think now, to some degree, I haven't really done a survey in a while. I plan to do one next year if I can. But I think the large proportion of people are working clinically now because of the fact there's such a demand for that type of thing. And working with teams, at least at the professional level, there's a limited supply of professional teams that people can work at. But the evolution of that is now there are more and more amateur teams are recognizing the value of athletic therapists, and more of them are hiring them, full time or at least seasonal for their seasons. And we actually, it's even going down further than that now. For example, in Winnipeg, high school football cannot go on without having a certified athletic therapist at the game, and so high school's now recognizing the value of having that, and so that's creating more jobs as well. I was just talking to somebody yesterday, and she's in charge of providing the athletic therapy services for a whole school division. And so she hires athletic therapists to work with all their basketball, their volleyball, their soccer, their football, their hockey program for a whole school division, which is kind of a dream that I've always had, is have that. So every one of our school divisions should have that. So it's evolving that way. That's, when I say, you've asked me about how it's evolved, I think that's one of the biggest ways that it's evolved.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest things that I've seen in the last 10 years is that evolution into sports, where when I started with football in university, it was all volunteer, and it wasn't a paid position working with a football team until I would say probably 8 years ago. I think they started paying therapists to be on teams, and it became a standard because our provincial association here in Manitoba, the MATA, had set up a contract with the high school football league to mandate that a certified therapist is on the field for their games.
Yeah,
so that
and
was
a lot of that, you say you did a lot of things as a volunteer. I mean, we've done years and years and years of volunteer, but eventually what that did is it created an awareness, and it established a need. They now realize that it's not a nice to have, it's a need to have. And so lots of times in some of these amateur sports, they go and say, look, we have to have an athletic therapist, and they charge an extra $20 on the membership, the registration fee, to be able to pay for that person's salary. And parents are glad to pay for that, because they know that their child is going to be properly taken care of, i.e. preventing the injury, and if the injury happens, then they're going to be properly taken care of. And they're more than happy to pay for that, because they realize the value of that. So that's been a great thing.
Yeah, I've never had a parent come up and complain about me being there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
They're mostly complaining that we're not taking care of them at the tournament. Oh, can I get a massage? Can I get this?
Yeah.
No.
Can you have a look at my ankle, please? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Raise the bar in 2025. Complete your BOC certification maintenance requirements early. Don't forget that 2025 is a reporting year for athletic trainers. Are you on track to complete your BOC certification maintenance requirements? Find out today by logging into your BOC profile at bocatc.org/BOC360. That's right, it's time, and this year is the year to renew your certification maintenance requirements. Check it out at bocatc.org/BOC360. Check out clinicallypressed.org/courses for access to free CEUs for athletic trainers. Register and enroll in as many CEUs as you'd like. New CEUs coming on a monthly basis, including from your host of To the Bone with Shelby Daly. Get ahead of your CEUs by listening to podcasts and getting credit for it. Clinically Pressed Company, making complicated simple through results that give back. Find out more at clinicallypressed.org.
So as we talked about you guys having a problem with the athletic portion of your name, for our legislation, a lot of our states are going through and rewriting how it's worded, because it was very directed towards athlete sport. And now that we are opening up our scope of practice to, industrial athletic training, more prevention, wellness, and all that stuff. In your guys' scope of practice, did you guys kind of pigeonhole yourselves into athletic populations, or has it always been open to general public?
It's always been open. Well, when we reestablished our scope of practice, we wanted to make sure that it was open to everyone. It's really good in Canada from our standpoint, is that we have direct access to the patients. So they can come in and make their appointments and come into our clinic. They don't have to go through a referral process. It used to be that way. That was self-imposed as a regulation. The Canadian Athletic Therapy Association said you could only see an athlete or a patient if they were referred to you from a physician. But as the times have evolved, and other professions have done the same thing, where they've now had direct access, and our medical community were more than happy to allow that to happen, because they'd worked with us for so long. They knew what we could do. And they trusted us, so they were happy to relinquish that responsibility. And so we oftentimes refer to the physically active individual. That we talk about that. We sometimes talk about the athlete in you. We try and do some, but we also in Manitoba particularly, we're covered by, we have a government motor vehicle insurance plan. Everybody has to register with this government insurance, and so if they get injured, then there's this government insurance that pays for the reimburses for their therapy, and they reimburse us. So we're being covered for people who are having an injury in a motor vehicle crash.
Gotcha.
We're also recognized in Manitoba. It's called the Workers' Compensation Board, and that's an insurance plan for people who get injured on the workplace. And so again, we have direct access to the patients. They reimburse us the same as they would with a physiotherapist. And so it's a great opportunity for us to broaden our scope of clientele. If you sprain your ankle on a job site, or you sprain it on a basketball court, it's the same ligament, and basically the inflammation's the same, the healing process is the same. What is a little bit different, I think, in some ways, is that we actually look at them as being an athlete. So that return to work, like they're an industrial athlete, as you mentioned, but we need to say, when we talk about return to play and look at all the rehab that has to have a return to play in a sport, in terms of plyometrics and agility and balance, et cetera, et cetera. We just translate that into what they have to do in the workplace. And so that becomes the new term, that's not new now, but it's now what was called work hardening. So we did work hardening to reintroduce them back into the workplace. And athletic therapists enjoy that privilege as well, to be able to see those patients.
So we're opposite of each other. Athletic trainers were integrated into the schools covering sports, and now we're kind of going into general public, where you guys were active population public, and then you guys were getting into the schools. Yeah. I think super interesting, ultimately, how we were crossing paths.
I was going to say, the interesting thing that where athletic trainers in the U.S. get into the schools is that they're, in large part, they were getting in because medical facilities, like the doctors, the orthopods, were hiring the therapists to go and work in the school system and provide the care in the school system. And of course, then that was almost a bit of a feeder. They say, if anybody gets hurt, well, now they can come back into the clinic, and that's where they get their surgeries and things done. So the orthopedic surgeons were actually paying to put people in the school system. That's how it initially happened. And I think to some degree, it's still happening that way with when they're with. So that's, but we didn't have that kind of luxury where our doctors were putting people in the school system.
Yeah. Well, and it's still, in most places here, we can't bill for insurance, and we don't deal with workers' comp either. So that's where it's kind of difficult, and why we are complaining about compensation a lot, because we are kind of socialized healthcare in that we are being provided by an organization most of the time, unless we're going into private practice. And then we still have to be overseen by doctors. So I think you guys can work independently in Canada.
So that being overseen by doctors was a whole new, I was not expecting you to say that when we were chatting the last time.
It's kind of crazy over here. But yeah, I think, the athletic portion of the names, I like it because we're athletes through life. But I would love to see it to go to like performance medicine or something like that. But, don't want to shake it up too much. And then I also had a question. We kind of identified some of the differences between athletic trainers and athletic therapists. But Glenn, what would you say is the major difference between the two?
Say that again. The difference between what?
Athletic therapists and athletic trainers.
Oh, well, there's not. I mean, other than the fact that we do a lot of clinical work with outside patients. I don't know that there's a big difference. Like the curriculums are relatively the same, and I don't know if the jobs that we do, if we're working with a team, whether you're an athletic trainer or an athletic therapist, it's the same thing. Of clinically, I think I'm not sure what the limitations on the scope of practice for athletic trainers working in a clinical setting. There really isn't any. Well, there's limitations that we do. It's musculoskeletal, et cetera, but we work on the spine and we work on like extremities, et cetera. There's no limitation on that at all. I don't really know that there's not much of a difference. I worked with a lot of athletic trainers and like great people, and I think that they're very, very skilled in the same way that I think our athletic therapists are as well. What was I going to say? I think that there is what you may, or I'm sure you know about it, but there is what's called the International Arrangement for Athletic Training and Therapy. So the International Arrangement of Athletic Training and Therapy, it used to be called the Mutual Recognition Agreement. And when it was just between Canada and the U.S., it was called the MRA. And that's where Canada and the U.S., we sat down and did an analysis of what athletic trainers do and what athletic therapists do, and found that there were so many commonalities that we just said, in terms of facilitating portability for people from Canada to move into the United States and work, or for Americans to come and work in Canada, we developed this mutual recognition agreement. And basically what it was is we recognized that people who came out of an academic institution, because your accreditation program was just as rigorous as ours, and your content was pretty much the same as ours. So we recognized that anybody who came from any other U.S. program had similar preparation as anybody come from a Canadian one. And then we said, but we want you to, the BOC will certify that, in fact, you have the skill sets that you came out of the school with. So we'll let them, do the regulation, much like the CATA does the same thing with our certification. So once you became BOC certified, or if we became CATA certified, then we could then apply, and we still wanted to make sure that there was a check and balance on it. A BOC certified person can now come into Canada and write our national exam, our certification exam, in the same way the CATA certified person can go to the BOC and write the BOC exam without having to do all the extra hours and all the academic. So we did that whole analysis, and we had this mutual recognition agreement. And then other countries have wanted to come in on that. The first one to come in was Ireland. So when Ireland came in, we said, okay, we got to change the format, because now we've got other people. How do we decide who's going to get to join our little club? And so then it evolved into what's now called the International Arrangement. And currently, Canada, U.S., Ireland, and the UK are partners in that. And other groups, other associations that we're working with right now, to like in Israel and in Greece and in Jordan, they're all working to get their curriculums up to the standard that they would be able to meet the international arrangement. And so that means that anybody who graduates from anywhere in the country, they would still have to come and write your national exam to prove that they have their skill sets, but then, and assuming they can meet all the immigration requirements, things like that, then they can work in your country. So that's a long way to where I'm saying, what's the difference between an AT and a PT and an athletic therapist and athletic trainer? Not a lot.
Yeah. Just the oversight, really.
Yeah, it sounds like it comes down to like the little things here and there. And I mean, the one that I think I pulled out from one of the previous podcasts we did was that athletic trainers can do joint relocations and we can't.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
the big sigh.
No, but that's limited too, I think, because in order for you to be able to do joint relocations, you have to have a certification on it. So your programs have to do it. Not all schools are doing joint relocations. So only if you've had some previous certification on it. They're also looking at, what's that? Sorry, Ashley?
I think it's your overseeing physician needs to sign off on it is the biggest thing.
Yeah, so they've got to, so they're accepting the liability for it, right? So because we don't want, so we're saying, we don't want the oversight from the physicians, and so we have to give up something because we're not training people how to do it, right? And in some ways that's a pretty difficult thing. Next time you want to come to school, Ashley, we'll dislocate your shoulder and we'll get some people to practice your shoulder. So, but that's a tough thing to try and do. But, at the same time, there are ways. I mean, we have ways of passively reducing joints, etc. Um, and the other thing that's happening, I think, if you think about the next evolution of where athletic therapy is in Canada, is the whole notion of provincial registration. So much like what you've done already, Shelby, in the States, where every state is now licensed. There isn't a single province in Canada now that licenses athletic therapy. So we're not licensed. We're not licensed in a legal government sense. But we're all, I mean, we're well accepted. But one of the things that we're doing now is saying we need to take that next step, and that's a long process when you're dealing with government. It's a long process. I can tell you the very first letter that I wrote to the province of Manitoba about licensure was in 1979. So that's a long time.
I've been hearing about it since I was in university. So
yeah, we are very close. Like our application is in now with our government, and I think within the next couple of years, 2 or 3 years, it'll probably go through. If not sooner than that. We're kind of putting some pressure on them to try and do some things.
Hey listeners, ever find yourself on the sidelines needing that one crucial item? Look no further than Nexus Sports Medicine. Nexus is your go-to partner for creating comprehensive medical kits and accessories tailored for athletic trainers in any setting. From high school fields to professional arenas, Nexus has you covered. These kits are designed by an athletic trainer with meticulous organization, ensuring that you're always prepared, no matter the situation. Stay ahead of the game with Nexus Sports Medicine and keep your athletes safe and thriving. Check out Nexus Sports Medicine at nexus-sportsmed.com. That's Nexus, NEXUS-sports, SPORTSMED.com to find out more and get your perfect gear today.
One of the things that's really interesting is that, and much in the, this is probably around the world right now, there's such a shortage for physicians and healthcare people. And so one of the things we're now talking with government is that we can be part of the solution. And a lot of in Canada, at least now, to try and solve the shortage of doctors, is they're looking at a team approach where they'll have a physician, but they'll also have a nutritionist and a sociologist and a nurse practitioner and physiotherapist, and hopefully an athletic therapist. In fact, that's already happening. There's a few clinics in the province of Manitoba where they have athletic therapists do the triage, and all the MSK people who come into their clinic, they do the initial assessment, and they decide whether or not that person could go on and continue to see the doctor, or whether they can just give it some home treatment. So that is happening, and it's saving someone. And so that's going to happen more and more as we get more of it. But in order for that to happen, then the athletic therapists have to be legally recognized and licensed, and have the legal power to regulate its members. So right now we don't have a legal power, and we can say that the Canadian Athletic Therapists Association says you're suspended. So what? I can go off and do something else. So you're not stopping me from doing anything because you don't have a legal right to do that. But if it's a college, they have the right to do that. And so to try just to kind of again further solidify the professional credibility of the association, and to really provide the reassurance to the public that people who call themselves athletic therapists have been fully and properly trained. They're very professional in their process, and if they don't, we will take action. Yeah.
Do you have a lot of people running around calling themselves athletic therapists like we do in California?
Yeah, no, we don't. Actually, you know what? It's a wonderful thing in Canada. Maybe it's just the Canadian thing, but when you stop with when we stop, this whole thing is all voluntary, right? I probably shouldn't be saying that in public, but the members have given the right to the Canadian Athletic Therapists Association to regulate them, and they don't own it. We could turn around and say, no, you can't. I'm not going to. And there have been some people who have done that. We have a letter that says a cease and desist. A lawyer writes them a letter, and they stop. Or if there are members of our association and they step over their bounds, we take action against them and we discipline them, and they accept the discipline. They don't have to, but they do, right? And it speaks to the passion of the members of and how much they care about this profession. Then even though there's no legal requirement to do these things, we legally require amongst ourselves to do it. So and we hold ourselves to it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's also, I mean, we're very, at least in Manitoba, I feel like our members are very loyal to the associations and appreciate everything that has been done to move the profession forward. So I don't think people go around just using the name without thinking about what that means.
Yeah.
I think the most I've seen is a clinic might not take athletic therapy off the door for a while because it takes time to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
So Glenn, would it be fair to say that, in the next 10 years, as the athletic therapy profession evolves, you're hoping to see that more, or at least, a couple of provinces are regulated?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really going to be key to the profession in the next 10 years. I think it's we need to solidify our position in the health community. There are a number of things that we can't avail of ourselves of because we don't have the legislation. Just a simple thing like GST in Canada, and that's a tax that in Canada it's called the Goods and Services Tax. So any service you provide, you have to charge a tax. But if you're a regulated profession, you actually can claim that money back. But because we're not regulated, we can claim that money back. So that's a simple thing. There's other things where, like in the federal government, to recognize athletic therapy, you really need to have that legal recognition to be able to do that. And so it really is, I guess, I won't say the last peg in the pegboard, but it's really an important one for us to continue going forward in the next 2 years. So, like I said, I know Quebec is close to doing it. Manitoba is close to doing it. BC and Alberta, maybe those ones are the next ones coming in. But I know, like I said, our application's been in. It's been in for 2 years now. And when we first put it in, they told us it's going to take 10 years to get it looked at. But apparently, it's going to get we have a new government coming in that's going to get fast tracked. So hopefully, the next couple of years, something happens.
What are the biggest hangups on why it hasn't been passed yet?
Oh, well, in Manitoba itself is because there are a number of other professions, so the chiropractors, the physicians, the physiotherapists, occupational therapists, speech therapists. There's all the osteopaths, all these other professions, and they all have legislative acts that are there. And our government has decided what they want to do is collapse them all into one standard sort of act. And so they've decided to do that. But now they've got to go with each one of those organizations, and they've got to go and work with them and take all their stuff and put it into a new thing. And there's only, I think, 2 or 3 people in this particular government department. So they're saying, I think we can do 1 or 2 of them a year. So they're saying, until we get all the ones that are already there done, we're not looking at any new ones. And so that's been a bit of a frustration for us. But that's it takes time. I can tell you, like in 1979, I proposed this thing, and I went in with myself and a fellow by the name of Gord Mackey, who was my mentor, and was one of the founding members of the Canadian Athletic Therapy Association. We went in and met with the Minister of Health, and the 2 of them knew each other really well. They were both boxers, and they both boxed in the same club, and they just had a good old time talking and stuff. And at the end of the thing, he says, like, we want athletic therapy on as a legislative act. He says, oh yeah, we can do that, no problem. I'll just put that under the medical act, no problem. Goodbye. Yeah, I got a call back from his deputy minister and said, yeah, that's not happening. So at the time, we were 25 members, and he said, you need at least 800 members before you can, because you're going to have to regulate yourself. And we now know that the Canadian Athletic Therapy Association is one that takes on the regulatory role right now. And I know one particular case that was taken up, it cost $50,000 to take this person through a whole investigation. So like 25 people, we didn't have $50,000. So there's no way that we could self-regulate ourselves or regulate ourselves. So they said, no, you're not doing that. So in that, it's taken that time for us to evolve. And we actually, our association a few years ago had a membership levy to create a legal fund. And it's all in preparation for when we get legislation. There's money is set aside that now will help us support this college, not to the fullest extent, but also our members are we've already warned our members that when a college comes in, you have to pay a college fee, and it could be $400 or $500 to support it. So again, our members are going to have to say, they're going to have to buck up and say, is this profession important enough? And I got to pay this fee. And like that's every other profession does the same thing. But
if we were regulated, we wouldn't have to pay that similar fee to the CATA, would we?
No.
Like unless we just wanted to, yeah.
Yeah, because then the CATA loses its regulatory power, authority that we have given them. All right, and they no longer regulate us. Now it's the province that regulates you in your own province. Now they'll continue until such time as all provinces, have their own regulatory power. They'll still have that authority, I suppose. But Manitoba, for example, you wouldn't have to join. You would have to join the college. That's required, but you wouldn't have to join the MATA, and you wouldn't have to join the CATA. And you would have the right to practice in Manitoba, but you may not have the right to practice anywhere else in Canada.
Yep,
unless you
how
have,
the U.S. is.
Yeah. So, but there's a big push here in Canada right now of getting more portability of the medical profession, like people just being able to go across the country to be able to work. And we have that already. The CATA already has that because we're regulated nationally, essentially. But it would probably be up to every province to say that. We'd probably have to get into agreements every province. Yeah.
I know with physiotherapy, because I teach a course with a physiotherapist, and having her come into Winnipeg to teach, she has to be licensed, and so she has to pay for a weekend license just to come and teach for the weekend, even if she doesn't put hands on people. Even to advertise the course with her name in it as an instructor, she has to be certified in Manitoba as a physiotherapist and meet their levels of standards. And that's been quite complicated, trying to get other practitioners or other physiotherapists coming into Winnipeg.
Yeah, that's interesting.
One of the big things.
Teaching. Just to teach, you have to get a license.
Yeah. I've got a colleague from Australia that I'm trying to get into Manitoba to teach, and I guess their insurance is significantly lower than what's required in Manitoba, and so it would be a very large cost just to update his insurance in order to be able to teach in Manitoba.
Yeah, I don't think we have to have insurance to teach in the U.S., but we are working on a national compact at the moment so that states can group together so you can buy one licensure and be able to practice in all those states. But I think in the U.S., it's licensure to treat. I don't think there's anything for education. So that's very interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Shelby, did you have any other questions that you wanted to add in?
No.
Glenn, was there anything you wanted to add in?
No, I want to thank you very much for the opportunity. It's great to be able to speak with you, and really great to be able to get a bit of the NATA and CATA perspective. And I now work on the international scene, so I do a lot of work with because I was the vice president, then president, now past president of the World Federation of Athletic Training. So it's been great to be able to take what we have learned both from in both of our countries and be able to apply or consult people around the world. So we've got members in Asia, and we've got members in the Middle East, and we've got members in the UK and Ireland, So it's great. I mean, it just kind of blows my mind all the time. I have these meetings with people. Like I had a meeting this morning with somebody in India, and then I had somebody in. I met with Japan. I'm talking to Japan all the time, and Korea. So it's kind of fun to see that this is really, really big and growing. And just as a reminder that in September, I don't know the exact date yet. I don't think we published the exact date, but I think it's the third Thursday or something in September is Athletic Therapy Day worldwide, and so we'll be promoting that too. So, and the whole point of that is just to show that we're here. Everybody, we just want to blow up the internet, and we just want to get everybody to log on all of the social platforms, and just for that day, get 1 million. The first year we did it, we had over 1 million hits on the internet. This kind of just shows you that we're not in this alone. There's so many other like-minded people who are developing this profession all around the world.
Is there any announcement on WFAT for that? Like a manifesto or anything that everybody can post?
Yeah, there will be some stuff that will come out, yeah. And
Okay.
The other thing, just to remember, we also have the World Federation conference is happening in Ireland, and that's in October.
Isn't that like in 2 weeks? Oh, no.
No,
That's
it's
October?
in October. October 17th
Okay.
I think 17th to the 19th is the other days, yeah. So,
Okay.
and it's going to be a great conference. It's going to be a really good conference. There's so much
And you're
interest.
going to be there?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, all right.
Perfect.
If you're there, I'll buy a drink.
All right, I'm gonna try and sum this up. So let me know if I miss anything. So going through from our first question, talking about how CATA was formed in 1965, and talking about how it first developed in Canada. Some of the initial influences, Glenn, you talked about how there was, all of a dozen people that decided that they were just going to get together for a drink and talk about, what they're doing in their work, in their different as athletic trainers across. You had Maple Leafs hockey team, you had I don't even remember the other.
There was from the Royal Military College. Many of these people came from the military, so they were all medics in the military. So that's how they kind of got back together again.
Okay. And so it was kind of a support group of sorts, where because you're typically the only AT with your group of athletes, then getting together and sharing information and learning from each other, networking, and that's really what it's evolved into, and what our CATA, which is now every 2 years we have a conference, where the goal of that is to share information and to network. And then we got into talking about the name change, where it used to be, we actually used to be a district of the National Athletic Therapist or National Athletic Trainer Association. And then as things progressed, then in 1965, the CATA became its own. We just wanted our own country, and and then in
Let's not go
75.
there.
Sorry, that was a slip. In 75, we switched the name from athletic trainer to athletic therapist, just to kind of get away from that association with the horse trainers and become our own medical field and not have that confusion. And then when we got into talking about some pivotal moments, you kind of started talking about when you first started your presidency at the age of 27, and how somebody walked up and just kind of said, you got to hold your ground. You got to, you've got the Physiotherapy Association coming at you. And so that was a big change, where yourself and there was 4 of you, Gail, Dexter, and Carol, brought in all of the bylaws, or the current bylaws, scope of practice, code of ethics, and then continued to work on it by continuing what had been done in 1975 with the regulation of exams, and moving towards the guidelines for program accreditation. And that came about in 1997, coming up to 1999, when Sheraton College opened, followed by University of Winnipeg and York University. So University of Winnipeg is in Manitoba. Sheraton, that's in Toronto.
Ontario. Yeah,
Ontario.
Toronto. Yeah,
And then York University is also in Toronto, correct?
that's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we got into talking about the evolution of athletic therapy, and it kind of started with just working with sports teams, typically in a university college setting. And then there became a need for a clinic when friends of athletes and family members of athletes just kept harassing you. And eventually a bottle of wine was not cutting it. And a clinic needed to open. You needed to hire people to take some overflow, and then it just progressed from there, where there was that need to start private practices, or that ability to start private practices. And then opposite to what's happening in the U.S., where you're going from sports into private clinic, now we're going from university sports into private clinic, and then into public sport, like high schools and middle schools. And I'm even seeing, different posts out there for elementary schools looking for athletic therapists coming in. And that, even though that started with a lot of volunteer time was needed for the coaches and the parents and the athletes to see the need for having an athletic therapist on staff or always on the field. And in Manitoba here, we've done our association has done a great job in creating those relationships and getting contracts set in place with the football association here for high schools. And then we got into talking about the athletic therapy versus US kind of differences, and noting that it's very much similar, which is what led to the international arrangement where athletic therapists from all over the world can work in other countries as long as they've taken the exam for the country that they want to be working in. Because, the CATA, BOC will look back and forth and ensure that you have all of the credentials that you need. And then when we got into talking about, where Canada is going, we're looking at the provincial regulation, which you and Gord Mackey had started in the 90s. And it's been in Manitoba anyways, and it's been going forward from there. And, the goal with that is to create credibility of the profession and be a reassurance to the public that it's a safe therapy and a safe place to go, I guess, and just being more well known in that health community. And I think we've really gotten there. We've gotten to see that, especially through COVID, where in Manitoba, athletic therapists were asked to come in and help out with the whole vaccination process and help out in hospitals. So that was really cool to see that in a, using quotations, health crisis, however you see it, we got to really find our place in the healthcare system here. And I think that opened up a lot of people's eyes to how much we can really do as ATs. And the biggest hangups on getting that regulation pushed through is that government and how long it takes to change that process over. And one thing that you really wanted to note was at one Thursday in September is Athletic Therapy Training Day. Not sure the date, but there is a Thursday in September. And the WFATT is having their conference in Ireland on October 17th. Did I miss anything?
No, you did a great job. I never would have remembered all that stuff.
I wrote it down. I'm much better at taking notes now than I was in university. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Glenn. We really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us and share your experiences and just the history of athletic therapy in Canada and in Manitoba.
Great. Well, I appreciate the opportunity to do that. And if anybody ever needs anything, they can find me at the University of Winnipeg and give me a shout. I'm happy to talk to anybody.
Perfect.
Yeah, and your email is gbergeron, so g.bergeron at uwinnipeg.ca.
Correct.
And I'll add that in my show notes.
Yeah.
I think Shelby will too.
Yeah. I'm sure there are a lot of questions that come from the Americans soon.
Pleasure meeting you, Shelby. It's great.
Yeah, thank you so much.
That's it for today's episode of To the Bone. I hope we've sparked some new thoughts, challenged your perspectives, or simply reminded you to dig a little deeper. Remember, life isn't just about what's on the surface. Sometimes you've got to cut deeper and get to the bone of what really matters. To the Bone podcast is a product of Daily LLC. It is hosted and produced by Shelby Daly, ATC, and Randy Daly. No clinical decision-making should be based solely on one source. While care is taken to ensure accuracy, factual errors can be present. For more on the show, visit www.tothebonepodcast.com. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Get involved in the conversation. You can find us at www.tothebonepodcast.com. Drop us topic suggestions or be a potential guest. We're all about connecting with you, our listeners. Until next time, stay curious, stay grounded, and keep cutting deep.